I'm your Huckleberry. That's just my game.
Welcome back to California Unearthed. We're doing something a little bit different today. As you see, I am not out and about at some historical site. I am in my living room with this episode. This isn't really California history, but I guess it is. More like Tombstone, Arizona. But we are talking about the 1993 movie Tombstone and a couple of the phrases that Val Kilmer uses in the movie, aka Doc Holliday. So we're going to go ahead and go through a few phrases and a little bit of history on that phrase or the phrases, and we'll go from there. So the idea of this video came from my friend Kirk and Chelsea, who messaged me a few weeks ago and wanted me to look into the idea of the Huckleberry. The Huckle being the handle of a coffin. And did Doc Holliday say Huckleberry, not Huckleberry? So let's dive right into this. I'm going to talk about the movie first, and then we'll go into the phrases. I actually was in Knott's Berry Farm a couple of weeks ago, and I really, really wanted to film this down there. That would have been the perfect backdrop for this video. But unfortunately, it was just too noisy, too many people, and I tried to do it a couple of times and just was getting too frustrated. And so I kind of gave up and decided I'd just do it here. So the 1993 Tombstone movie with Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday. It was written by Kevin Jarre. And the original screenplay was a lot darker than the movie that we see. Kurt Russell and a couple of the other actors thought it would be a good idea to kind of tone down the original screenplay from what it was. But the original screenplay was based off a 1927 book called Tombstone by Walter Noble Burns. Kevin Jarre got his ideas from that book, but a better book was written in 1931 by Stewart N. Lake, named Wyatt Earp. And this book was actually written 2 years after Wyatt died in 1929, so he didn't see this book get published. But I wish he would have, because this book is based off of interviews with Wyatt Earp and Wyatt Earp's memoirs. So this book's a little more accurate than the 1927 Tombstone book that this movie is based off of. But I will say that there's a lot of scenes in Tombstone that are pretty accurate as per eyewitness and newspaper accounts. The whole scene at the OK Corral was pretty accurate. Johnny Ringo wanting to fight Wyatt in the street, that actually happened. Johnny Ringo's death by the hands of Doc Holliday did not happen, but it just kind of made for a better movie and a better story. But there's a lot of things in that movie that actually happened, so that was pretty cool. An interesting fact on this movie actually was that Kevin Costner, who came out with the movie Wyatt Earp in 1994, just a year later after Tombstone, and I always wondered why those two movies were so close together. Well, I found out that Kevin Costner actually worked on the Tombstone project, and he disagreed with Kurt Russell and Kevin Jarre and believed that the movie should be more based on just Wyatt Earp and his life and not the side characters, where Kevin Jarre's screenplay was more focused on all the characters, not just Wyatt. And so Kevin Costner left the project and went and did his own thing. And apparently there's a little rivalry there as well. But anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. I answered my question why those two movies with the same subject were so close together. All right, so let's get back into Tombstone and the phrase, "I'm your Huckleberry." It's an odd phrase. It's an old Southern phrase, Southern slang, And the idea that Doc Holliday actually said it, we don't know. There's no evidence that he actually said that in his life. He may have, but we just don't have any physical evidence of it. And it would make sense that he would. It was a Southern slang term, and Doc Holliday was all about using slang terms, and we'll talk about that a little bit later with "You're a daisy if you do." That's another one we're going to discuss. But he did actually say "You're a daisy if you do." It is recorded in newspaper articles and eyewitness accounts to the gunfight at the OK Corral. So that did actually happen. So as far as "I'm Your Huckleberry," let's dive into the history of it a little bit. So the term huckleberry, a huckleberry is it's kind of like a blueberry. I believe it's not so dark of a color. Yeah, I don't think it's as dark of a color as the blueberries, but I've actually had wild huckleberries up in Oregon. They're pretty good. I've only found a few, not a whole lot. So we don't get a whole lot of huckleberries over here in the West Coast. But like I said, up in Oregon, they had a few wild ones I saw. So the term huckleberry goes all the way back to King Arthur and the medieval ages. When there was a damsel in distress, if a knight would save that damsel, then he would be rewarded with huckleberry branches, which he would put on the end of his lance, showing that he was that damsel's hero, her savior. And so that huckleberry branch was a reward and a show of honor for the knights. So we fast forward to the mid to late 1800s. The first time "I'm Your Huckleberry" was in print that I have found was 1883. But the name Huckleberry goes back to 1876 in the book Tom Sawyer, written by Samuel Clemens. Huckleberry Finn was Tom Sawyer's sidekick, his buddy. And it wasn't until 1884 that Huckleberry Finn got his own book. And that was after the OK Corral. The OK Corral happened in 1881. Doc Holliday, I think, passed away in 1887, if I remember correctly. So he more than likely did read Tom Sawyer in 1876 and read Huckleberry Finn as well. I don't see Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn's books having a whole big influence on the term "I'm Your Huckleberry" myself. I don't see it myself, but some say that that's where that phrase came from. I will argue I disagree with that. Because Huckleberry Finn was a sidekick character. He was not as important as Tom Sawyer. And if you look at the phrase "I'm your Huckleberry" in the South in the mid to late 1800s, it meant I'm the man for the job. I'm the guy that will get it done. It doesn't mean I'm the sidekick or I'm the guy who will take care of the main character. And some people believe that that's what it means as well, but personally, I like the idea of it meaning that I'm the man for the job. I'm the one that's going to be able to get it done. So if you look at this scene in the movie Tombstone.
Sister boy should have stuck around.
What do you want, Ringo?
I want your blood. And I want your souls. And I want them both right now.
I don't want any more trouble.
Well, you got trouble! And it starts with you.
I'm not gonna fight you, Ringo. There's no money in it. Sober up. Come on, boys.
Wretched slugs. Don't any of you have the guts to play for blood?
I'm your Huckleberry. That's just my game.
Doc Holliday looks at Johnny Ringo and basically says, I'm your Huckleberry. I'm the man for the job. Let's do it. let's fight. But later on in the movie, he says it once again, and this is where the Huckleberry part comes in. Now, a huckle is a handle of a coffin back in the mid to late 1800s in the South. And the person carrying the coffin, instead of being a pallbearer, was a hucklebearer. And so when Doc Holliday faces Johnny Ringo in this scene here,
Well, I didn't think you had it in you.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like somebody just walked over your grave.
he's basically telling Johnny Ringo, I'm the guy that's going to take you to your grave. I'm the guy that's going to carry your coffin and bury you 6 feet under. It's a whole different atmosphere from the first scene we saw. And so if Doc Holliday actually said, I'm your Huckleberry, he could have said, I'm your Hucklebearer in real life, and may have been misunderstood by people in the West because he has such a deep Southern accent that I'm your Hucklebearer sounded like I'm your Huckleberry. But we don't know that for sure. We don't even know if he even said it. But the screenplay for Tombstone is verified by Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer both that the phrase in the screenplay is, I am your Huckleberry. So that's verified by those two actors that Hucklebearer was not a phrase in the screenplay. And that was another thing that they also were saying that not critics, but people that were making an argument for Hucklebearer were saying that Val Kilmer just messed up the words and said Huckleberry instead of Hucklebearer. But like I said, it's been confirmed that the original screenplay said Huckleberry. So now off to the other term, the one that Doc Holliday did actually say, you're a daisy if you do. He did say that at the OK Corral to Frank McLaury. And how that happened was, and this isn't word for word, I don't have it in front of me, but Frank basically saw that Doc Holliday had shot both barrels of his shotgun, and Frank drew on Doc Holliday and said, I got you now. Doc Holliday looked at him and says, you're a daisy if you do.
I got you now, you son of a bitch. You're a daisy if you do.
Meaning, a daisy would be, you're the best. You're the top dog. You're the cat's meow, you know. And so by Doc saying, you're a daisy if you do, basically saying, you're the best at what you do if you can gun me down. And we all know that that didn't happen. Doc ends up shooting Frank, and Frank is not the daisy. So that term is a really cool term. It is a Southern term, and Doc Holliday does use it in real life, and I think that's pretty cool. So he says it once again in the movie at that last scene when he shoots Johnny Ringo, and after he shoots Johnny Ringo, he is in his face and says, you're no daisy. You're no daisy at all.
You're no daisy. You're no daisy at all. Poor soul. He was just too high strung.
So you're not the best. You're not the best at all. And the funny thing about that scene is we don't know who actually shot Johnny Ringo in real life. His body was just found with a gunshot wound to the head, leaning up against a tree. Some say that Wyatt shot him. Some say that Doc Holliday did it, but Doc Holliday was supposed to be in Colorado at that time, so it was kind of a reach to say that he did it. There's another gentleman by the name of Frank Leslie who is a big candidate for the person who shot Johnny Ringo. They were having issues, and he was a bar owner in the town of Tombstone. And Frank Leslie is known to be one of the people who shot Johnny Ringo. But nobody really knows. There's a lot of evidence to that, but there's no like die-hard, concrete evidence that anybody really shot him. He could have even shot himself, and that's another one of those theories, is that he committed suicide. So nobody really knows. It depends on who you talk to. Some people say, oh yeah, it was Frank Leslie for sure. We know for a fact, but who knows? So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. It's really, with all the research I did, it's really up to you and what you want to believe. If Doc Holliday actually said it, if he didn't say it. Like I said, there's no physical evidence that he ever used the term, I'm your Huckleberry, but more than likely he could have. You know, he did use the word daisy, and that was another slang Southern term, so he could have used, you know, the Huckleberry term as well. There's a little bit of a side story as well to this before I end the video. Doc Holliday did have a relationship with his first cousin before he went to Tombstone. She did go to a nunnery. Her name was Martha Ann Holliday. Maddie Holliday is what people called her. She passed away in 1939, and her and Doc Holliday wrote to one another quite often. And when she passed away in 1939, the family burned all the letters between her and Doc Holliday because they did not want Doc Holliday's reputation to be ruined by these letters. It was a different Doc Holliday in those letters than the Doc Holliday that we all know. And speaking of that, Doc Holliday's reputation was all self-made. I've looked at a few historians, and a lot of them say that Doc Holliday's reputation was pretty much a self-made reputation that he created to protect himself. He was pushing himself. He was expressing how badass he was and how he could kill anybody or anything, and he was fast as could be. And he was the one to push all that. That way he's protecting himself from getting hurt. And so the Doc Holliday we know from the dime novels and all the stories may not be as accurate as real life. They may just be a figment of his own imagination to protect himself in the West. He was a skinny lunger, and that's pretty smart for him to do. Pretty smart. So, like I said, the letters between him and his cousin Maddie Holliday got destroyed for that reason, that they would ruin the reputation that we all know of Doc Holliday. So that is a sad, sad thing to hear. I wish we had those. It'd be really interesting to read some of that. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I know I probably didn't answer a whole lot of questions, and that's the thing about history. It's all kind of all in the interpretation of it. You know, did he say it? Did he not say it? At least we do know for a fact that he did say, you're a daisy if you do. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Smash the like button. Comment down below what you think. Did Doc Holliday say it? Did he not say it? Yeah, who knows? We'll see. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
I've not yet begun to defile myself.